Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Brilliantly Resilient Live. I have the nicest young couple with me today. I have with me David and Ann Darling. And I mean, you know me, I'm a movie nerd, I'm a Disney nerd. Like, I go right to Peter Pan. They're the darlings. How could it already? We're off on a good foot. But David and Ann, the reason that I wanted to have them on the show is that they are the founders and owners of the farm at Catawissa Creek in Catawissa, PA. They have come from very different areas of life to create this beautiful farm and show their brilliance through their transferable skills, all sorts of good stuff. So we're going to get into that. David and Ann, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us on.
So to follow up on what I just said, you're not farmers. I mean, at least at least not by birth, by generational farmers. That was not your thing, right?
Yeah, and that's not a thing for anyone our age, basically. I mean, if you look at the statistics from the USDA, it's actually kind of a depressing, kind of concerning story that there's no young people going into farming because there's quite a lot of barriers that need to be addressed, such as land, cost of land, and how do you even get the skills since none of us came from agricultural backgrounds and things like that. And then once you have the land, about the equipment and all this stuff, and then finding a market, and it's just a very difficult business to do. I mean, you ask a farmer that's been doing it for 40 years, it's not quite profitable like all the time, but yeah, to go into it, it's people are like, are you crazy? So yeah.
Well,
But the
that
calling was there. That's the thing is like when you're called to do something, you show up. And I think the farm definitely started with David and his story and him always feeling the inner call. And then, I mean, you could get into all of the serendipitous things
Yeah,
that happened along the way because it's true. He also, like both of us did not come from farming backgrounds.
no, not at all. Yeah,
so
I mean,
to your point
go
about
ahead.
your backgrounds, and I did a little bit of research on both of you. So David, you were a math major, you studied math at Eastern.
Yeah,
And
I did. I played math and I played lacrosse, and yeah.
you did the suburban type Philly sort of thing with Eastern. Where is Eastern exactly? My husband's a soccer coach for Gwynedd Mercy, so he's played Eastern, but I know they're
It's
not right
right,
around Philly.
right near Villanova. I
Okay, right,
think.
yeah, so right near Villanova. Okay. So you were not focused on farming, but the interesting thing about your story and the thing that really aligns nicely with the way we talk about brilliantly resilient, you did a lot of volunteer work at food kitchens and things like that. And one of the things that we talk about with being brilliantly resilient is how your service, where your passions lie and where your devotion to service comes in, that can often lead you to exactly what you said, Anne, about a calling. So David, how did that take place for you? Tell us a little bit about that part of the journey.
Well, I mean, I think I'd have to go back like pretty far. I had some like traumatic events, which I think kind of fits this, like we talked on our little pre-call about how, things happen in your life and you're not, you don't necessarily are ready for them. But those kind of things led to a really like a shell shock, almost like a midlife crisis at like 16, I would
Mm.
say. Like, what is the point of this? And it's like I have to go to geometry class, the next day, but like one of my friends died in front of me. Like how do you reconcile that? And there's like no therapy or like anything. It's just like you showed up and are just like, okay, I guess we're doing, like
We're doing
homework
geometry
now.
again. Yeah, we're back
Yeah.
at it.
And
Yeah.
so, I think like that took like 10 years of like really working through, but like through that, it's just like it didn't make sense to just like I kept looking around and seeing all my peers like able to just like we're just gonna get a degree and like get jobs and like do this. And it's like for me, that didn't make any sense. I couldn't it had no resonance. I had to like have something that really felt like it was meaningful, because I saw this termination, and it could happen to anyone. It's like this was, 16-year-old kid. And um, so I think through that, and I was really looking for, like kind of spiritual stuff, and like trying to find out like how to make sense of this. And it wasn't like necessarily like always like on the top of my mind, but I think deep internally that's like what was driving me. It's like I wasn't interested in like making a bunch of money or whatever. It was like, how do you live the best life, and how do you do that? And like working through those problems, it came out, it's like do something bigger than yourself, use your talents, in a way that you confer the benefit not only like onto the community, but then the community can also like respond to you. And yeah, so I think eventually a lot of serendipitous things, I started getting into food, and like serving food to food insecure populations in Philadelphia. And there's some really great places down there. I'm not sure what they're doing now, or if they still like kind of operate the same way, but um I got kind of invested, and they asked me to procure the food. And it's like I hated going to Restaurant Depot. So I started like asking farms in the area. And then I started learning about these problems we alluded to in the beginning of the show, about how there's no young farmers, there's all these problems. And, it's
So,
kind of this call of like, oh my God, like, this is a really big problem, and I think this is like a place to apply this energy and this thing. It's like, if no one's gonna grow food, who's gonna grow food?
right.
And it's
So
like,
at that point, did you feel almost that you saw the food insecurity in front of you with these individual
yeah,
people, but then the potential food insecurity for all of us? Because if people
yeah,
aren't
that's
growing
that's exactly
food, to your point,
that's exactly what happened. And the soil stewardship and kind of the corporate interest, and like, do I really want like a mega corporation like in charge of my diet, because those are the only
I'm going to go
people
with
that
no. Yeah, no.
those are the only people that can afford and compete with these land prices and things like that. So
Yeah.
it's like, so it really, really like, and that was kind of, I think, one of the beginning realizations was like, oh my gosh, like, I guess if no one else is going to do this, I'll be the crazy enough to like try.
Yeah.
And at the
And
same point,
that's a
yeah,
huge piece of it. You kind of have to take that leap of faith. Now, and you were in a whole different space. You were in the first of all, close to my heart, the whole culture, beauty, fashion, like, yes, give me more of that, please. But you also, and this speaks to where your kind of symbiosis comes together, because you both had this sort of seeking a more spiritual avenue for your work and your lives and everything. And you did a lot with yoga, and also, was it Thai massage, and you studied over there, and so there was a lot of holistic, and I guess this is what I'm getting at. Both of you had whether you realized it and named it as that or not, a deep interest in the holistic parts of being human.
Definitely. Oh,
And
yeah.
definitely. I mean,
how
even
did
when I
you go from New York? You said when COVID hit, everything changed for the better for you. So tell me a little bit
I,
about your background.
Yeah, so I also had this deep spiritual knowing in me since I was younger too. And it definitely came through in my life in my path with yoga and Thai body work. But even as I'm going through this corporate career in fashion, I still had that connection to I want to be centered and share that part of myself. And food always was really important to me too. Like I always really tried to eat organic and healthier things, like balanced, from the earth, not so much processed foods. So when COVID hit, I had a great job in New York City. The team I was working on was amazing. The people were wonderful. It was kind of like I hit the top of how good the situation could be. And I had my own apartment and could afford having my car with me too. So it was
Wow.
like,
And this
oh,
is in New
life is
York.
great.
You were doing okay.
Right, right.
You got all that in New York, of course.
Yeah, I was living right across the river from New York and Fort Lee. So um that was also the problem, is that I had everything kind of settling in, like, okay, I'm an adult and I have my life together, but the commute was so bad.
Oh.
That was the one piece that didn't fit with what I wanted in my life. So I would spend these like hour and a half, 2 hour each way commutes reading and just attuning my vibration to what I wanted, even if I didn't really know how that would look. Because, I wanted a relationship, I wanted a family, but I didn't know how doing these 12-hour days with like work and then travel to get to and from my home would allow for me to have that kind of life. And on the other side too, I think I was also wanting something a little bit more aligned to my like true heart purpose. And while I enjoyed designing, I didn't really feel like what I was doing within that job was that alignment. I think being there and being with the people and just shining my light through the building, the city, just being there and being that presence of love and joy in a place where, it can be hard. New York City can be tough. And you see it on the subways every morning. Everyone is tired and hungry, hangry. And, I just felt like I need to send love everywhere. So anyway, it got to the point where I'm like, I look up at the sky one night when I was coming home and I just said, like, God, I can't do this commute one more day. I don't know how, but please figure it out. I can't do this ever again. And then I never had to. Everything shut down with COVID. So I was working from home. I know it's kind of a crazy story, but David's story is also just as crazy. So everything shut down. I'm working from home. And a couple months later, they lay off the entire design department. So none
Wow.
of our jobs exist anymore. Our whole team of wonderful, wonderful people just dissolved. And that's where David serendipitously came into my life. And we just knew when we met each other, it was
Yeah,
like,
it
oh
was
my God, I found my
pretty
person
spontaneous.
and we have this purpose in our life. And like the farm was kind of already here. He was going to buy the property. So he brought me here, showed me, told me the plan. And I'm like, wow, okay, yeah, this is alignment. This is the calling.
One of
Yeah.
the things I saw on your website, you talked about that one of the things that it says is everything, you realize that everything could come together in one expression. And I love that way of putting that when there's a couple of points that I want to pull out of both of your stories. Um, a lot of times people think in order to be brilliant and resilient and all that stuff, you have to have this big, like, aha moment. Like all of a sudden something happens and everything falls into place. That is so rarely the way these things happen. It's much more of a procession of things, but you have to still be, as you both said, attuned to what you want your purpose or your calling or whatever to be, and then be open to that, and then be willing to take those leaps of faith. So there's a piece of
I
that there.
mean, yeah, I
Definitely.
think one thing to
Definitely.
really kind of refine on what you just said is that it's like, I don't think either of us really knew like what it was. I mean, Anne is like a very brilliant like designer, and she's very brilliant at anything creative and bringing something out of kind of the ethereal and making it into the physical. Like anything you need, she can do. But it's like you said, it's like it wasn't fully it, and it's like same with me. It's like I feel like I'm a very talented person too, but it's like nothing I was doing and anything I wanted to do like myself, like what didn't work. But then I got like literally answering the call And it's like weird how it's like all these phone calls that would just like happen, and I'd be like, okay, hello, like, um, to like get to the point, like people kept telling me, oh, you need to go to this agriculture conference. And I was like, why? You know, like I don't have any money. I just sold my car because I'm like, oh, I need some more money, you know, like I can live in the city forever. And it's in the middle of Pennsylvania at State College. And I was like, well, okay, okay. And, more and more people just kept telling me this. And then finally someone sent me oh, you can get a scholarship. And I didn't fill it out. And then someone else sent me the same thing and said, hey, you can get a scholarship to go to this thing. And
This
so
is
I
God
did.
literally throwing things at
I
you.
mean,
Saying,
it
do
gets,
it.
It
it
gets
gets,
crazier.
this is why I say to people, it's like, if I can screw up this many times and like get to here, it's like just keep going. So yeah, and then I fill it out, I get a 1-day scholarship. I'm like, okay, great, like I don't know how I'm gonna get there. It's like whatever. And then I'm on this phone call because I had like kind of just randomly volunteered to be a part of this other agricultural like organization. It turns out they're going to have a big presence at this conference. And they're like, oh, are you going? And I'm like, yeah, I got a 1-day scholarship. And they're like, well, we can pay for your meals and the rest of your conference. And I was like, okay. And they're like, well, the only caveat is you have to work this table and just, promote our thing and like talk to people for some of the sessions. And I was like, okay, that sounds great. Hang up that phone. I get up out of my chair, my phone starts ringing. I answer it, and someone's like, hey, are you going to this conference? And I'm like, yeah, I am. Literally, I just got, the whole thing. They're like, hey, do you want a ride and a place to stay? We're like, have this place to stay. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm like really going to this conference now. And like everything was taken care of. And it's like I get there and it's like, wow, I really feel the resonance of like, oh my God. And the whole thing is about like the theme that year was like farming for the future and like how there's no young people like going into farming and like all this stuff. And they're like, everyone's 65 years old and has land. They don't know what to do. We're going to lose 100 million acres over the next 10 years. And
Oh
like,
gosh.
so anyway, I'm working the table. Nobody's in the halls. Like everyone's in the sessions. Like I don't know why I picked this time. It was like clearly no
Empty.
everyone was empty. It was empty. And this guy starts walking down the hall, like older guy, and he comes up to me and he just starts telling me, "Hey, I got this farm. It's near Bloomsburg, blah 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 blah," like just spewing information. And I'm like, okay, like I know young farmers, like I don't know, like I'll take your email, like, and I felt really bad after that because I'm like, oh my God, it's exactly what they said. Like there's these
Yeah.
people that start coming up to you, they don't know what to do. And so I went home and that really motivated me to, there's a couple other really synchronistic things that happened with how I got this formalized apprenticeship. But anyway, I applied for an apprenticeship, I got it, and that kind of set it off. And they ended up paying for the same conference the next year because I had to get
Wow.
like extracurricular credits and stuff. So I'm like, kind of like, yeah, I'm a farmer now. And then but I'm with a friend, another young farmer. He's like, this session isn't doing it for me. Like, I'm gonna go to this other one, like midway through, and it's the last day of the conference, kind of like the last sessions. So I'm like, whatever, I'll go with you. And we walk into the session and he sits down right next to the older gentleman from the previous year.
Oh
The
my
guy
gosh.
turns to us during the like break and he's like, I've got this farm, like, and I was like, yeah, it's right in here, Bloomsburg. It used to be an apple orchard. Like, you're from Massachusetts. Like, can I talk to you after? And he was like, kind of like shocked. He was like, wait a second, like, did I talk to you before? And
I
and
imagine that those people probably have told their story so many times in the hopes
he
that
said
they
he
Thousands.
he said
make
he
the
approached
connection.
5,000. He said he approached over 5,000 people and he was looking for 5 years and he was going to
Oh,
leave the conference and put it on auction.
oh my
This was the
gosh.
last day
highest
that he was
possible
going to
moment.
And this is your
moment.
farm now. This is your farm.
Yeah,
Yes,
because
this is our farm.
he was adopting his granddaughter, his 5-year-old granddaughter,
Oh my gosh.
He's
and
a saint.
he's
He is
really
a
uh
beautiful
someone
person.
definitely he would
Mhm.
like to model yourself
Yeah,
after if you
So,
could.
true.
so
But
looking
then
at
like
this,
2 weeks later, I came here the first time where he was coming back from Massachusetts to take care of this place every like kind of 2 weeks, and he wasn't going to be able to do that anymore with this kind of adoption thing going on. So it's like, so yeah, I'm like, how did this I didn't have anything really to do with this besides this holding this kind of like, how do I like apply my skills and talents and vision in the best possible way?
well, and
And like
this is where
back
I want to talk to you again about this, because both of you, when we talk about being brilliantly resilient, again, one of the things that we talk about is your transferable skills. So
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not about being born to be something. It
no,
is about,
no.
learning, doing as much as you can, following that bit of passion, and then seeing where you can take those transferable skills and
Yeah.
build what
Which
you
I
guys
think
have built.
Anne is like a really good example of that, because literally you could make the argument she was born to like make stuff, especially fashion design. Like you were doing that at such a young age, and she made her whole wardrobes like years, school and
I think like attuning to the highest possible good, like that, going back to what
yeah,
you're saying,
Yeah.
is like
yeah.
that's one of our biggest pillars of like who we are, our relationship, what we are creating in our lives, is like we always attune to what is the highest possible good, what's the highest possible service that we can provide.
And not just for humans, like that
Yeah,
was a big
for
part of it too.
creatures,
Is
for our
like a big part
planet.
of why we were able to secure this property is because we wanted to preserve not only the legacy of the family farm, but very high conservation stewardship uh mindset, where
Mhm.
it's like we want to have the ecosystem. We share this. It's 130 acres with a huge body of water moving through it that goes all the way into the Chesapeake Bay and into the ocean. And a lot of creatures live here that rely on it and rely on us not to overtill the fields and like or have manure run off into it. And people, it's like creatures and people all along the Chesapeake watershed. Like, if you live along the Susquehanna, it's like you should care about what I'm doing,
Yeah.
like
That you
and
mentioned that in your website too, about that awareness that everything you do has the potential to impact everything downstream. And that's a mindset that I mean, the American Indians always talk about that seventh generation. You have to think about what you're
yeah.
doing beyond your moment and think about 7 generations. But in the more immediate term, like you said, it's okay, how is what I'm doing affecting my neighbors and the environment and all that? So to that point, I want to talk now and shift a little bit to
Yeah.
the real crux of what you do, and that is bringing people together with their food and the source of their food. Now, what what are we missing by not doing that? And how do you provide the opportunity to fill people with that where you are?
Well, I think a lot of us are missing this like intrinsic relationship or this relationship to the soil. Everything comes in a box, everything is packaged, everything is sent from one area of the country, like California or whatever, to a distribution center. It's packaged and then distributed. And that has its benefits. It's like convenient, but it's like very wasteful. Like you look at the food waste statistics and it's like very appalling.
It's disconnected too from
But
the soil and also nature. Because like I think you have to think of soil as being alive also. Like we want our soil to be alive, organic matter. But that
it's a
leads,
home. It's
yeah,
a literal home for not only the plants, but a lot of creatures that lots of us can't even articulate. We don't know what they are. We know like 1% of kind of like the the biology in the soil, and what
Hmm.
they do, what the functions they do. We know that there's a lot, but it's like, so anyway, it's like people are very disconnected from it in a lot of ways. And it's like we're very digital. We have such a digital landscape that we're navigating. And the farm used to be kind of this crux and this like central aspect of the community, and like a lot of businesses supported that, and a lot of people needed that to go to the farm and know that they could get their milk or their cheese or their meat like from this place in this area. And it's like, take Anne for example, like she worked in New York City, lived in New Jersey, worked for a company based out of Canada, and dealt only with people in India and China and whatever in
Bangladesh, yeah.
Bangladesh as a part of her thing. And it's like, you're like, oh, that's great. That's so connected. But it's like, and then where did you ever see the product that you designed like anywhere? Like, so there's this kind of thing that you can like extrapolate from like how disconnected we are from our food. And everyone is like that in like every aspect of our life. So how do we get it back to people? Like, why we want to bring people back to food is that first foundational element. Everyone needs food. So
Mhm.
everyone should be concerned about the soil. Everyone should be concerned about who's growing it, how they're growing it, the transparency aspect of it, and like why when I go to the store and I buy something, am I supporting someone that's like pouring chemicals all over their field, and like then it rains and it like runs off into the water that I go swim in the Chesapeake Bay, like what, something like that. And it's like I don't think people can make that connection because it seems so far
It's
away,
so
but it's
far
like
away.
so
Yeah.
it's
I would
not,
I would
and that's
venture to
the
say
big,
a lot of kids going to a grocery store, children, probably
yeah,
haven't the slightest idea that the things on those shelves come a lot, they come at least initiate from a living source.
yeah.
I would venture
Yeah,
to guess they don't even know
I
that.
yeah.
and I wouldn't even know that like he doesn't even have to be a child, like
Right.
where I
Mhm.
think we're that far apart from, I think that for me, it's like I never went on a farm, like until I was apparently like 27 or something, So it's like, and like having these kind of realizations, and it's like it's groundbreaking, like real mind-blowing realizations when you kind of like see this. And it's like we provide a service too. We offer direct market vegetables, and almost all of our customers are like cancer survivors, autoimmune, like
Hmm.
all these kind of things. I mean, we don't know, like, but then we talk to them, we get to interact with these people, and like that's a big part of like why we love doing it. And then like they know, like, because they have one of these traumatic events, and they're like, wow, you can actually change. This is all environmental exposure, mostly, that like this cancer and these kind of crazy things happen. And if you take control of your diet, and like
And
it
get
solves a
back
lot of
to
the
the
problems,
soil, take control of your diet, but more than that, like just bringing it back to soil and nature. Like you're eating from where you are.
Yeah,
So that means like these plants are getting the same sun exposure that you're getting. There's that resonance there.
the
The
microbiome is attuned
microbiome.
to the soil.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
microbiome is attuned to the soil in your area. Remember, like soil is a microbiome too,
Every
same as
soil's
in your gut.
different too, just like so
Yeah.
many people are different. It's
So
like
you want a
soil in
healthy
California.
microbiome inside your body, but you want your food coming from a healthy microbiome in the soil
In your area.
in your area, right? Because there's that resonance again. So, like this attunement to where your food comes from and nature. And that brings you back to your body being in balance because you're starting to realize like you're home, you're feeding yourself from home. Nature is your home, your like soil as your home, your body as your home. So,
So a
yeah.
lot of our events, to kind of go off of that, and I think answer the second part of your question, are keyed in on bringing people back to this relationship through their food, the relationship with this broader environment with with the natural world that we are a part of. You know, I like people say, oh, it's nature, but it's like, no, we're a part of nature.
Right, right.
But you know, using a really delicious meal that they can see where it came from in our farm field, paired with these holistic bodywork experiences, yoga, mindfulness, creative things like we have an interesting collaboration with an artist, a teacher that, you know, is going to teach how to see and draw, even if you don't know how to draw, like see and draw in nature to really have that connection. You know, people before photographs, like you used to have to be able to draw the landscape, and that was a
Mhm.
skill that like a lot of people had to have. And now being able to look and see and spend that time observing where you are is so foreign to people because
Yes.
it's like we're addicted to
The
Well,
a
everything
hustle.
comes,
screen,
those things take
hustle,
time.
like
Those
yeah,
those things take time, and that I think in a lot of ways, what you're talking about is investing time for yourself and for like, and you were talking about the soil, and again, one of the things that you guys talk about is being stewards of this, like being aware that these relationships to your body, to your community, all of these things play out over a period of time. We're so used to having everything immediately
yeah,
given to us that people don't recognize that by doing that, not only are they shortchanging themselves emotionally, but physically. I mean, this stuff, that
Yeah.
shortcuts that we're putting in, right? And you were going to say?
Yeah, and like, I mean, I would argue spiritually
Hmm.
too, just because we keep talking about this aspect of like presence and being present. Like when you're here and you know where your food comes from, you see it out in the field, maybe you helped us pull it out of the ground. You're doing these activities that like make you feel like your heart is blasted wide open. You feel so much love, joy, connection. Like that's our true essence. And like we curate these experiences through food, through art, through community, through body work that bring that connection of like food, nature, and presence all together.
So
yeah,
you talk about, and I love this, and this maybe sums up what you're saying. You're helping
Mm-hmm.
people to reimagine their relationship to creative intelligence.
Yeah,
yeah,
Say that on your
absolutely.
website. And, I have to
Yeah.
say, when I first spoke to you guys, I told you I was in the middle of planting stuff in my garden. I am not a good gardener, but I have to tell you, the amazing wonder that I feel when I look at this one head of lettuce that is just growing out of the ground and thinking, I'm going to pull stuff off of that and eat it, and it's going to nourish me. It really does elevate you mentally and spiritually, and because of the freshness of the food, physically, to a different place. So
yeah,
I'm looking at what you're saying, and I'm thinking about all of your experiences and the globalization that we have, and there's a measure of what you're saying that really says, look guys, like turn it inward a little bit. Like,
Here
don't
now.
forget,
Like,
yeah, you're here
it.
now. Don't Let's take a look at what's right in front of your eyes. Is that part of your message too?
well, yeah, and like the value system I think is, and people don't even understand what they value because we are only taught in terms of money,
Mm.
which is not real in any sense, you know, where it's like, great, you know, like, do you ever see a dollar anymore? Like, no. And
Well, I'm
so it's
old,
like,
so yes, I see them because they're
yeah,
in my
so
handbag. I'm old.
some people, but it's like, what is like you swipe or you tap now,
Mhm.
and like, you know, there's just in, but it's like, we're taught that you just need to get more money to be able to pay for things.
Yeah,
But it's like everyone is focusing on this as their like central core value of like, how do we make the most money? That the quality of the products and the services is going down,
right.
and the quality of the stewardship is going down too, especially when you talk about food, because like, how do you get more and more? Everything in food is in terms of weight. So it's like people don't understand that we grow varieties of carrots that taste good, They
It's
aren't
really
these
funny. My
huge
grand
conquering carrots that, you just want to fill up a bushel box and it's like, oh man, we got 40 pounds out of that, like, and they taste like nothing, where it's like we pick varieties that we really enjoy, and people are like, oh my God, I've never had a tomato
It
like
tastes
this.
like that. My
That
grandson went
tastes
to a farm
good.
locally. He went to a farm locally. He's a little guy, he's 4, but they took him to a local farm and they picked strawberries. Now, these were real farm grown strawberries, so they were small. They weren't these like apple-sized strawberries that you get in a plastic carton. They were the sweetest, most wonderful tasting strawberries that I have eaten in ages because they were not bombarded or, or what's the word, modified or whatever by anything. They were just allowed to grow and be strawberries.
And there's different varieties. Like we used to
Yes.
grow strawberries at my apprenticeship, and it's like we would have like 3 or 4 different ones because some of them come early, some like last the whole strawberry
Mhm.
season, and like that's the thing. It's like everyone likes different things, but it's
Yes.
like, yeah, you can definitely taste the difference between the varieties, but most people have no idea that they're like, how, I mean, if you look at our seed catalog, it's like there's pages and pages and pages of like beets, and they're all different kind of shapes, all different kind of sizes, all different kind of flavor profiles. And it's like, it's really an amazing kind of discipline, but it's like everyone is being deprived of this because everything is based on money and weight. Weight is
Yes.
like the only consistent thing you can um like standardize the value. It's like you
Mhm.
can't standardize the taste,
Yeah. And
like
that's what
if
we're missing. We're missing those sort of, the things that should be really important. Again, to your point, that whole value system, we're missing that. Well, I have to tell you, this has been, I could talk to you guys for hours because this is fascinating. But I want everybody to know more about you, where they can find information about you, what your website is. So give me some of that information, please.
So you can find us at thefarm@catawissacreek.com, the farm at Catawissa, Catawissacreek.com, Catawissa Creek. We have a schedule of events going on this summer, including a few multiple day immersive retreats. There's some day retreats as well, where we will have these food experiences along with these presencing experiences, movement, art, meditation. Just being here is amazing too. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at The Farm at Catawissa Creek.
Well,
so. And one more thing to top that off, we're talking about value system. Our biggest value is beauty, and that's something that we also talk about, reconciliation with the beautiful. So if you feel like you really want to value beauty and be in a beautiful space and spend time with beautiful people and eat beautiful food, then check us out.
I
That's
love how
nice.
you combined all of those things. We don't think about food often as beautiful. We don't, we see things, images of things, and we say, "Oh my gosh, that's so pretty." Well, guess what, everybody? You can actually go to the farm at Catawissa and see all this in person and sample the food. And I urge everybody to do that because I've looked at the pictures. I'm coming one of these days. Yeah, I'm just going to show up on your doorstep. I will be
Please
there
do. Please
because we're
do.
not that far away. And I really want everybody to take this message to heart. You guys are doing a wonderful thing. I'm so grateful that you are starting out as these young farmers and hopefully can encourage other people to do that because, guys, we need to eat. These are the ones who are going to help us eat. So pay attention to that. Check out Anne and David, darling. I'm so happy you guys joined us. And if you're looking for a little bit more brilliance, head on over to brilliantlyresilient.net. You can sign up for our weekly brilliance bit, which will come to you. Anne and David will be part of that when we get this episode on the air. And sign up and we can help you also live a little bit more of a brilliantly resilient life. Thanks for being with us, everybody. See you next time on Brilliantly Resilient Live.